despite the police serving organizers with a court injunction application.
No member of the security forces is being invited to this demonstration. This is a demonstration which is open only to civilians. And never in my recollection of the history of this country have civilians engaged in an unconstitutional overthrow of the government. This is not the purpose of this gathering.
So can the group call the bluff of the police with a court case pending? We have the latest on the standoff between the protesters and the police.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. It was billed as a protest that will shake the government at its very core. But tonight there is great uncertainty if the Fix the Country movement can proceed with its 3-day continuous protest at the seat of government itself. There is tonight a full-blown standoff between the pressure group Fix the Country and the police over this 3-day protest at the seat of government, with the police now filing an application and announcing that it has successfully served it on the organizers. Well, there is a strongly worded statement tonight from the organizers as well, determined to call the bluff of the police. We'll get into that pretty shortly, but listen to convener of the group laying out why they've taken the decision to hold the protest tomorrow.
We are engaged in what is a peaceful demonstration. The freedom of assembly and the right to protest is constitutionally guaranteed to every citizen. This is an activity that we take on and the right we are exercising solemnly, in reminder of where we have gotten to as a society. It is not an invitation for chaos. And I know that some of the conversations around Jubilee House and anything which demands accountability, particularly because we are under a regime that has weaponized fear, that so much fear has been weaponized that anybody feels that if they are exercising their rights, they're going to come under attack. I assure you, for as long as our comrades are alive, so for as long as our resolve is settled, we will make sure that every person who is coming there will be protected. We're putting together volunteer marshals who are going to provide protection and security to everybody and organize and help orderly control of everybody there. Now, one of the bigger conversations that we have had in preparing for this match is the conversations around military overthrows in the sub-region. And it's important that we address this head on. One, and importantly, no member of the security forces is being invited to this demonstration. This is a demonstration which is open only to civilians. And never in my recollection of the history of this country have civilians engaged in an unconstitutional overthrow of the government. This is not the purpose of this gathering. The purpose is to remind duty bearers that we citizens demand for a different kind of leadership and to improve the face of our democracy.
Well, my colleague who also has been following this very closely for us with the Legal Affairs Desk joins us right now in the studio. Kudunyako, the police, they've issued a statement tonight. Have they secured a court injunction?
They have secured no injunction. In fact, a statement from the police indicates that they have filed an application at the court and successfully served the organizers of the group, identifying itself as Democracy Hub in connection with a planned demonstration within the vicinity of the Jubilee House from Thursday 21st to Saturday 23rd September 2023. In fact, they said that as they wait for the court to determine the matter, they wish to urge the public to take note and disregard any calls from individuals or groups encouraging them to assemble for a demonstration at the Jubilee House. And they equally wish to urge the organizers to respect the due process in the interest of public order and public safety.
And the organizers have also responded in kind. They are asking the public to also disregard the police.
Yes, and that is true. In fact, they indicate that they are appalled by the desperate and likely partisan attempt by the police to disrupt their peaceful and democratic mobilization of their upcoming Occupy Jubilee House picket. In fact, they are inviting the general public to disregard a statement which is riddled with misinformation, and their picket will proceed as planned. In fact, they are inviting the general public to assemble at the 37 Trotro station from 6:30 a.m. tomorrow for an onward march to the Jolobi House, as they choose to call it, and their decision follows that of the legal position taken by the government, the Electoral Commission, that the mere filing of an application does not prevent the exercise of their constitutional rights.
Thank you very much, Coach. I want to bring in convener for the group, Oliver Bakavomawa, joins us right now on the line. Oliver, I see the police statement and they are very emphatic that they have successfully served it on the organizers. Have you been served?
No member of Democracy Hub, Fix the Country, or any of the associated groups organizing the picket have received or been served with any application. In fact, the first time we heard about it was a number of media houses who were calling us and drawing our attention to the circulation on social media of the statements of the police. And we feel that the police have invited us to respect due process of law, and we have always abided by the due process of law. But we know of no law that serves people of a court process on social media. And as long as we're not privy to what the police are talking about, we are unable to confirm or deny whether in fact any application has been made to the court. And that's notwithstanding.
But if an application has been made, isn't the announcement enough that at least it has been made and you know of it now?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, they are claiming that an application has been made. And by their own admission, there is no court order which is stopping the process from going ahead. In fact, we know that the government has taken a legal position, and that position has been affirmed continuously. One, by the Ghana Revenue Authority, which continues to apply and charge e-levy, even though there's a court and a court application and a case which has been brought against that e-levy, and they have still proceeded to implement it. We know that there's a court action against the Electoral Commission, against the limited registration, but yet we are still going ahead with it. So it seems very clearly, and everybody can understand that the legal position is that the mere filing of any application does not operate as an injunction to bar people from going forward. It is our hope that the police, and we understand that they have a legal department, that the legal department will take the time to explain the process, the position of the law to them, and that they will come and abide and respect their obligations under the Public Order Act.
If you're served, would you call the protest off?
No, if we are served, unless we are served, and let me be clear, unless we are served with a court injunction that requires us not to go ahead, and we can talk about and debate about the morality of such an injunction. Of course, the courts have been complicit in some of the misbehavior of the police. We would respect that court order. Because one of the things we do not want to is to follow those who have decided that they are not going to respect the authority of our democracy and join them in their misbehavior. So as long as we do not have an injunction of the court, we will proceed. If we are served with an injunction of the court, then absolutely call off the protest.
The police is basing this on the questions of public order and public safety, and they are asking the public to disregard what you're planning to do tomorrow. Don't they have a case in this? They have to provide security for your own leadership and anybody else who is joining you tomorrow, and they're saying to you that they can't do that tomorrow for whatever reason. That's why they've taken this course of action.
That's fine. I mean, I think that one thing is clear. We think that what the police is doing is an intentional attempt, in fact, to depress the number of people who are going to show up. And it may well have that effect, because a number of people may look at this and become apprehensive that we have a police service that is undisciplined, that they may come out and misbehave. So people might genuinely fear. But I do think that the vast majority of people we are hearing from are saying that they are going to go ahead and show up for the pickets, and that's what we're going to do. And it is important that we remind ourselves that one of the prices we have paid to no longer live under a dictatorship is the protection of the Constitution. And we do not want a police service that behaves like some of the police services that we have known in other African countries that have invited a destabilization of those countries. We love our democracy and we want it protected. And for which reason we are going to show up and turn up in support of that democracy.
But then you run a risk. If anything goes wrong, you'll be held liable. You are now subject to arrest and possible prosecution.
In fact, the only thing that can go wrong is that the police will not respect their legal obligations. Whether the police decide to abuse the law and arrest me, it's not the first time an individual has been unjustifiably arrested by the police. But I have ultimate faith in our democracy that the right thing would prevail. Those who abuse the power in order to suppress dissent have never won. That the act and the moral act of justice always bends in favor of those who stand up for what is right. So they may go ahead and decide to do whatever. In fact, I cannot control what they decide to do. What I am telling you is that we are going to show up, and we're going to be peaceful, we're going to have our hands raised, all the time to show that we have no intention of attacking the police or whatsoever. And if they put any roadblock, we're just going to stand in front of the roadblock without breaching that. But what we want to show is that we want to tear down abuse of power and show that it is ultimately resistance and the morality of justice that wins.
You just said that you can control what the police plans to do, but can you control what the individuals joining you tomorrow to protest will do?
Well, even we've been in this country, the country has organized 9 demonstrations. The last demonstration we organized was in Tamale, with over 15,000 people showing up to demonstrate. Not a single, and I repeat, not a single place the country demonstration has resolved into chaos. Not a single person has been injured. In fact, we take our time to sweep our streets while we are at it. So yes, we have perfected the systems for ensuring that citizens that come up are law-abiding. With that invitation, the police decide, as they did with the Rise Ghana demonstration, to show up and become a jump provocateur. That is on to them. But as far as we are concerned, and the individuals who show up for our demonstrations are concerned, we are completely interested in improving our democratic culture. Why else do they do anything? There's no evidence of it.
Stay with me. I want to bring in lawyer and former ranking on the Constitutional Legal Affairs Committee, Inusa Fuseni, who joins us right now on the line as well. Mr. Fuseni, thank you for your time here on Top Story. So the police claims they have successfully served this on the Fix the Country movement. As you just heard there, the convener say they haven't received it, but the police say that in itself should stop them from proceeding, and I urging them to respect the law. What do you say about this?
Evans, good evening and thank you for having me. Evans, we need to go back to the Public Order Act, Act 936, and read carefully Section 1, subsection 1 to 7. My understanding is that the police have not notified or informed the demonstrators to either hold or postpone or change the route of their demonstration. Neither have the demonstrators, because they have not done that, the demonstrators have not written back under Section 5 to refuse to comply. And so Section 6, which invokes the jurisdiction of the court to step in, has not even materialized. I mean, the police will be shirking or running away from their responsibility to provide protection if they fail to provide protection to the demonstrators tomorrow, because there are procedural requirements from Section 1, subsection 1 of the Act to Section 7. And each subsection is very important. If the demonstrators did not apply to the court to the police 5 days before the intended day of the demonstration, then the police have every right to refuse. If the demonstrators refuse to provide the name, the route, the destination, the time, the purpose of the subsection 2, then they would have breached the Act. So there are requirements. If the police thinks that there will be public compromises in public defense, public order, public safety, public health, and the run of essential services, or the violation of rights of persons, then they invoke Section 4. You see, so there are procedural requirements. And listening to this whole debate, I don't think that the procedural requirements actually imposed on the police have been complied with. And so I don't know the basis upon which they are going to court. In fact, their right to go to court under Section 6 has preconditions. It has preconditions. That is, there must be a refusal to change the route or a refusal to comply within 48 hours. That invokes the right of the police to go to court. The right doesn't exist alone. It's founded on certain things. Those things must be met before you can go to court. The police can go to court. The police cannot just get up and decide to go to court. No. I invite the police, like Bekavawa said, I invite the police department to critically look at Section 1, subsection 1 to 7 of the Public Order Act. And you will come to the conclusion that every step matters in invoking the jurisdiction of the courts to settle the impasse between the police and the demonstrators.
Let me get some clarity from Baka Voma. Baka, when you met the police, and I doubt even if you have done so, did they indicate any objection to the protest and the intended route?
Absolutely not. In fact, we notified the police as far back as 21st August 2023, over a month before.
Hello, Oliver. Hello, Oliver. Okay.
Yeah, hello?
Yes, I lost you briefly. You say you
Okay.
notified them as far back as?
Yes, that we notified them as far back as 21st August, which is over a month ago. At no point have the police indicated to us that they are unable to provide security for the event. In fact, the last communication we had with them was on just this Saturday past, where we had written to them that we wanted to be able to visit the location with them, so that if there are any areas of the forefront of the Jubilee House that they don't want civilians or protesters to have access to, we can mark those out and then they can shield those away from the public. And they told us that they don't usually work on Saturdays, so let's put that within the week. Then the next thing we see is a press statement claiming that they have served any offense with an court of application. We think that this is a deliberate ruse, and we don't understand why the police feel so entitled to be able to do this. We really do not understand why.
I mean, but all they've done really is simply to use a legal process here and go to court and file the application on yourselves, as they claim. Nothing wrong there, is there?
I wish it was so simple. As the Honorable Minister was explaining, that there are procedural steps through which a person must go through before you get to filing an application. The fact that the process doesn't invite you to file any application in order to create an expectation or a process to abuse other people's rights. That's not what the court exists for. The court exists to fulfill rights and not to violate them. So I don't know where they feel that there's a certain entitlement, that the mere filing of an application, if in fact one did happen, entitles them to block citizens from exercising constitutional rights when they have what the law required of 5 days to give them a month's notice. And yet they fail to reach out to us to be able to reach an understanding whatsoever.
Oliver, stay with me. Inusa Fuseni, stay with me as well. This protest was scheduled to go ahead at the seat of government, the presidency, to be very precise, for 3 days. I want to bring in a man who works there. He's a presidential staffer, but also the executive secretary of the Interministerial Coordinating Committee on Decentralization. He is Dennis Miracle Abuaji. Hello, Dennis. Thanks for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you for having me.
So tomorrow, where you work, would have seen many people gathering to protest against corruption, to protest against the economic challenges. Tonight, the police have sought on the application, and they claim they've served it on them. And this is a party that believes in the rule of law and the democracy. They, of course, as you've heard argued, this is your right, and they should simply be allowed to register that protest against the issues that I've outlined. Where do you stand on this?
Well, Evans, to be very sincere and fair to your listeners, but for a few hours ago, about an hour or two ago, I didn't even know that there was an impending demonstration tomorrow. And I also don't think that there's a problem with anybody wanting to demonstrate against whatever reasons. People have several reasons why they demonstrate. There are others who also disagree with the reasons why people demonstrate on various issues. But like you said, we're in a democratic dispensation, and we are allowed to express our views in various forms and ways. The same democratic dispensation gives individuals and organizations mandates under the law to also execute as such. So I don't think government has any problem with anybody demonstrating for whatever reason. People demonstrate for personal reasons, selfish reasons, political reasons, disguised in or behind so many other reasons. So that's allowed. People also demonstrate for genuine reasons. That's also allowed. And government has no reason to be worried if anybody was to protest. And I had a conversation, and I heard that the police have filed an application or something of that sort.
Yeah, they have filed an application.
Yeah, I mean, that's the police. Maybe you should talk to the police.
The allegation, though, that this is politically motivated, by your government.
Of course. What else do you expect? I mean, what else do you expect from whoever is organizing this?
Are you behind this to stop the protest from going ahead?
That's what I'm saying. What else do you expect? Ultimately, they must draw government into this. The police have their job. You keep making the point that we are in a democracy and the democratic principles allows. The same democratic principles also have given institutions mandates. And when the institutions exercise the mandate, then you want to try and draw others who have nothing to do with that institution into it. Sometimes the double standards, they are too much. Government has no problem with anybody protesting. The police have their job to do. It has nothing to do with the government. Call the police on a line and ask them why they've taken the position that they've taken, but it has nothing to do with government. And I don't think government will be drawn into this, whatever it is between protesters and police. They should do whatever they want to do, and protesters can go on to protest if they want to. Police can also execute their mandates within the law as it's prescribed. If you disagree with the police, there are within the same political dispensation, there are processes for you to follow. But this has nothing to do with government. You can try to drag government into it, but ultimately the listeners and your viewers will know that this has always been the modus. When we do not have our way, let's go for the low-hanging fruit. Drag government into it so that we can berate government. But this is needless, and I'll be surprised if anybody without a selfish parochial interest would accept that government has anything to do with it. The police have a job to do. Let's allow the police to do their job. Let's allow protesters to protest. Let's allow the protesters to do that within the law. Let's allow the police also to do their work within the law. If government has anything to do or say with or for or against a protest, the government will say so. But to try and drag government into it is quite unfortunate, but that's the standard operating procedure.
So I assume you have nothing then against the protesters, and you encourage that they go ahead with their protest?
If they are doing it within the law. But we cannot determine how all other institutions and individuals within the same democratic dispensation also exercises their mandates in the same democracy. But government has nothing, absolutely nothing. I mean, I heard Oliver make a point that they've had over 9 protests and demonstrations under the same government. So why would government have a problem with a group that is known to be a serial protesting group and a serial demonstrating group, that where government has been tolerating, meeting, accepting petitions if they have any form for a while now? Why would government have any problem with the same group today? Government has no problem, Evans, absolutely no problem with anybody who wants to protest. Not all Ghanaians agree with the position that they have taken, and that is why you will not have 30 million Ghanaians coming on the streets. But at the same time, you can't also stop others from expressing their views in a protest as they want. I mean, the MPP is one of the political parties that is known to express our views in various forms, including protests and demonstrations. Thankfully, unlike it happened in the past, where we went on the street to protest and some of us were beaten and whipped with hostiles and all of that, we haven't had a cause to see any under this dispensation. And I'm glad that you heard Oliver say that there were about 9 protests and there hasn't been any incidents.
Yeah, let me bring in Oliver finally. Oliver, so you accept, do you know, that this is a decision taken by the police and they were doing so in pursuance of their professional mandate? They will ask the court to make a decision on the matter, and rightly so. This is what the democracy dictates.
First of all, I mean, I think that let's be clear that even in the exercise of powers that have been given to institutions or persons, that they might do so in a way that undermines the democracy. There's never been any dictatorship that is lawless. In fact, most dictatorships are lawful. They use the law and the instrument of the law to be able to achieve undemocratic ends. This is what we are talking about. The other gentleman that came in working from the office of the president, obviously, he's not privy to a lot of what is happening. So having just woken up, I can excuse a lot of the things that he's talked about. But everybody in this country knows that since the country first wanted to demonstrate on May 9, 2021, it took us up until August, 4th August, having been gone through the same process with the police as well to be able to get there. That there were intentional efforts to frustrate that so many of our conveners have received consistent and persistent death threats from elements within the government. But that's beside the point. I don't want to dwell on the attitude of the administration generally that continues to weaponize fear in order to dissuade people from speaking up. It's a conversation we can have another day. Today, what we are talking about is that the police employed a ruse that they claimed that they were going to support and going to respect their duties under the law and failed to do so. We are clear in our stance that we always respect the law. The law is clear. Unless there's an injunction or court order given by a court that prevents an exercise or the enjoyment of a particular constitutional right from going forward, you are entitled to do so. That is what we are going to do. We are going to show up, and we are going to show up peacefully. Now, whatever else that any person wants to justify police conduct, we're operating in a democracy, and I think that subsequently, after we have ticketed at the House, we'll then go on and sue the police for this attempt to depress our numbers and also frustrate us from enjoying our constitutional rights.
Oliver, thank you very much. Miracles Abuaji, I'm grateful that you joined us, and also joining us as the former ranking member on the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee in Parliament, Inusa Fuseni. Where do you stand on this? The protest is tomorrow. You've seen the police's own statement and your reasoning for it. Share your thoughts. 055 11 997.
Ajwa, the online page for the new business account was in shambles yesterday. We lost the page.
Tell me about it.
We started off very confident, and then the office broadband went down. When we set up the hotspot from the phone to reconnect, the data allocation also got finished.
You are joking.
I wish. The meeting room was hot. Kobe quickly tried calling them to give us some more time, but he had no airtime. Total chaos. They also gave us feedback that our website didn't have enough information. How can you run a business this way and hope to grow?
Oh dear.
Your business communication can be way better than this. Vodafone One Business is a complete communications package that gives you broadband with data transfer to mobile phones, mobile package with free calls among employees, landline with free calls and website design plus domain name registration. At Vodafone Business, we understand that strong connections within your business lead to success. Call 050-777-9000 or sign up by sending an email to sme@vodafone.com. Vodafone, further together.
Yes, so cool! Betway's cash out just got way better. Our enhanced early, partial, and auto cash out feature lets you cash out your bet out early. Cash out a portion of your ongoing bets, or even set your bet to cash out automatically. All this to give you way more control over every thrilling bet you place. Sign up today at betway.com.gh. Terms and conditions apply. Regulated by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. No under 18. Betway. Get way more.
On Newsnight in the next 60 minutes, United Nations study uncovers high ammunition circulation in Ghana and other West African countries posing significant danger to peace and security.
There's enormous competition, including military-grade competition, of course, around the world, and we found that effective weapons and ammunition management in countries can do a great deal.
Tonight we hear from President Akufo-Addo, who has joined African leaders to take on the United Nations and world powers for failing Africa in the midst of its numerous conflicts, particularly in West Africa.
we must also cool down on conflict.
The international community must strengthen its commitment to arrest the flow of armed and violent people into West Africa.
We feel no sense of the international solidarity that we believe we should receive.
We have details as the president calls for drastic and immediate changes to the UN security architecture.
The time was long overdue to correct the long-standing injustice that the current structure and composition of the United Nations Security Council represent for the nations of Africa.
Also tonight, Minority sounds alarm bells on government's plans to collateralize Ghana's 10 oil field to secure a loan of $431 million from Latisco SA.
GNPC is raising this facility from Latasco and Loop Oil, and in return, they are giving out our oil to this company for the next 5.5 years. Indeed, all of the oil in the 10 fields.
And in business, Ghana's economic growth for second quarter slows to 3.2% due to challenges in some sectors.
Also Newsnight, Elections Committee of MPP fights off claims its superintendent over a flawed election as it insists aggrieved aspirants like Alan Chamanteng, who pulled out from the race, couldn't use internal structures to address their concerns.
Protest on 26th August was very fair, and I believe for one or two incidents that took place, I think even the aspirants, when they came here, some of them came to congratulate us.
You want to stay with us here on Newsnight? I want to hear from you. 055-1111-997. My name is Evans Mensah. And the United Nations has tonight uncovered a worrying trend of high ammunition circulation in Ghana and other West African countries, posing a significant danger to peace and security. And that's according to the latest weapons and ammunition baseline assessment conducted by the United Nations Institute for Disarmament. The West African sub-region has in recent times grappled with challenges of military takeovers and widespread activities of violent extremism, which is highly associated with arms race confronting the region. Now, in a bid to tackle the situation, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, is exploring close collaboration with the United Nations research team. Stakeholders drawn from ECOWAS member states converge in Accra to discuss the way forward. Now, Director for the United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research, Robin Gears, has directed the partners to work together to deal with this particular problem, highlighting the danger it poses to peace and security in Ghana and beyond.
And we're not naive about this. Disarmament is not in a good state right now. There's enormous competition, including military, great competition, of course, around the world, armed conflict, and so on. And for us, of course, disarmament, we don't look at it in isolation. It's connected to everything else. Conflict, disarmament issues are deeply interlinked with development issues. And I think, therefore, it's an issue that must concern us all with one another. And that's really what we're trying to support as a UN think tank entity. The multilateral level, linking it to regional efforts, understanding what is happening in countries, what are the specific problems that need solutions, so that we don't have, lofty debates, but really problem-oriented debates, and then bringing it back to the multilateral level and hopefully integrating it into treaty discussions or even treaties and instruments going forward.
And let's talk about your initial findings. What are some of them, and what are some of the key factors going into the engagement? Yeah,
so we, since 2016, have been conducting in West Africa weapons and ammunition management baseline assessments. And we found that effective weapons and ammunition management in countries can do a great deal in mitigating drivers of conflict and armed violence. And so we've developed a whole methodology and different tools that we bring to states, discuss with states, and then together we try to implement them in support of the states at the national level, really with the aim to enhance their weapons and ammunition management policies. And I think that has worked quite well. This is why The collaboration has started in 2016 and is ongoing today in 2023. So I do think countries are benefiting from this collaboration, and if anything, we hope to be expanding and continuing it in the future.
Well, tonight we're also hearing from Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who also chairs the ECOWAS, accusing foreign entities of pumping billions of dollars to fuel tension and armed conflict in the region.
That region is locked in protracted battle against violent extremists, and the turmoil, a dark channel of inhuman commerce, has formed. Along the route, everything is for sale. At the same time, mercenaries and extremists with their lethal weapons and vile ideologies invade our region from the north. This harmful traffic undermines the peace and stability of the entire region. African nation will improve our economics so that our people do not risk their life to sweep the floors and streets of other nations. We also shall devote ourselves to disbanding extremist groups on our turf. Foreign entities abated by local criminals who aspire to be petty warlords have drafted thousands of people into servitude to illegally mine gold and other resources. Billions of dollars meant to improve the nation's economy now fuel violent enterprises. If left unchecked, they will threaten peace and place national security at a grave danger.
Well, in Ghana right now, there is also that conversation happening. We are hearing from the Small Arms Commission that is admitting that we are getting a serious influx of these arms and ammunition in the country, and is posing a grave danger now to our own internal security. Listen to Jifade Owens, who is a research officer at the Small Arms Commission.
I would say that in the first quarter of the year for Ghana, it's been relatively low, but after the first quarter, it has shot up by month. So as we are getting towards the end of the year, what we are worried about is that the figures might keep going up, and that is something that we are looking to prevent as a commission.
Well, when you say it's going up, give us an idea of how bad the situation is.
I would say the situation is not the best, but thankfully for Ghana, it is not, let me say, as bad as other West African countries, because we have a substantial level of peace and security in Ghana. But we do not want it to get to the point where we are unable to control it, and then it leads into conflict that would lead to loss of lives and other properties. So from what we've noticed, it appears that every month the numbers go up from the previous month. So for example, if, say, in the month of May, we had about 15 cases involving small arms and light weapons, you realize that in the following month, we have close to about 20. The numbers are not very specific, precisely. Though, it's just an estimate. Yes. We should be concerned because the issue is around us.
Well, on this same subject of the conflict in the SAP region, we've already heard the accusation from the Nigerian president that foreign powers are pumping billions of dollars into the SAP region in terms of the procurement of arms and fueling violent conflicts. Well, today our own President Akufo-Addo has joined that same call. In fact, forging a united front to confront the United Nations and major world powers over their reluctance to intervene in ongoing conflicts that have ravaged the African continent, particularly in the West African sub-region. This united stance was articulated during the address at the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Listen to our president.
Instability in the Sahel and widespread terroristic activity have put West African countries under severe political pressure and economic strain. Several countries in the region have lost vast stretches of territory to the rampaging terrorists. Coup d'etats have re-emerged as what some mistakenly hoped would be the solution to the threats that confront their nation. We in the West African region are trying as best as we can, under the very trying conditions we face, to deal with the situation. We are convinced that the conflicts that continue to plague our continent and our region, in particular, would be more satisfactorily resolved if the international community was to support, not undermine, the efforts of our regional and continental organizations to deal with them. Africans fought and died in the Second World War in defense of Europe and her allies, who reset the world towards the path of peace and prosperity that their nations and citizens have enjoyed for decades now. It is surely time for the world to reciprocate in our time of need. We do not seek to shirk any responsibility for the problems we face that are of our own making, and it bears repeating that we are not craving for sympathy, and we do not want to be a scar on anybody's conscience. But we cannot, and the world should not, pretend that the present-day economic and social conditions of Africa have nothing to do with the historical injustices that have fashioned the structures of the world. It is time to acknowledge openly that much of Europe and the United States have been built from the vast wealth harvested from the sweat, tears, blood, and horrors of the transatlantic slave trade.
Well, he called for a drastic and immediate change to the UN security architecture to give Africa a voice.
But it is also true that the reluctance by the nations that were the major power at the formation of the organization to agree to any reform to reflect present realities has led to the undermining of the credibility of the United Nations and some of its organs, in particular the Security Council. Mr. President, it has been a sad and disappointing experience for us. We've witnessed it firsthand over and over again that the big powers of the United Nations might be preaching democracy, fairness, and justice around the world, but are happy to practice the opposite here at the United Nations, prioritizing parochial interests over those of humanity. The time was long overdue to correct the long-standing injustice that the current structure and composition of the United Nations Security Council represent for the nations of Africa. After serving on the Council at this difficult time in the world, our views on the need for reform have been even more strongly reasserted. We cannot continue to preach democracy, equality, and good governance around the globe. We cannot insist on peace and justice in the world when our global organization is seen by the majority of its members and the people of the world as hampered by an unjust and unfair structure. For the past year and a half, a full-scale war is being waged in the center of Europe. The United Nations appears unwilling or unable to influence the events taking place in Ukraine. Ghana has sat on the Security Council throughout this period and can testify that the global solidarity we seek to reignite under the umbrella of the UN will only happen if and when it suits those who wield the mighty power of veto. And at the moment, there's nothing to show that these countries have any interest or inclination to do so.
Well, let's get some specifics now, and we'll put this in the international context. But Ghana specifically, as you've heard the UN say tonight, with the circulation of these illicit arms in the country, part of which is fueling the conflict you've seen in the SAP region. And as you heard the president say, this obviously has placed us in the middle of a global conflict situation, and he's asking the West to do far more to deal with these challenges that Africa is facing. You've heard the Nigerian president also suggest that the West is actually complicit and fueling these conflicts. But let's come to Ghana. Let's bring in J.B. Asante. He's the Deputy Director of Policy Planning and Monitoring Evaluation at the Small Arms Commission. Joins us right now. Dr. Ishmael Hlovo is lecturer at the University of Education, Winneba, and also an expert in international relations. Thank you for joining us here on Newsnight. Mr. J.B. Asante, let me start with you. What are the latest numbers when it comes to the illicit circulation of small arms and arms generally in this country?
Hello, Evans.
Yes, Mr. Asante, can you hear me?
Yeah, your voice is a bit faint.
Is it better?
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, but you sound far away.
Okay, let's try and address that. I want to bring in right now Dr. Ishmael Hlovo, who joins us now. Let's bring in international relations dimensions to this. Hello, Dr. Hlovo.
Hello, good evening.
You've had the. Thank you. Yes, you've had the president tonight. He's not alone in this call to challenge in the West, taking on the United Nations and world powers, standing by and looking on and doing very little. Then you hear Tinubu say they are actually now complicit in fueling these conflicts. And are they justified in these assertions that they've been making today at the UN General Assembly?
Yeah, thank you. They are justified to the extent that how the major powers behave have goes a long way to affect our local situation here. So if you look at the current trend of coups and other things, it's all about the geopolitical repositioning of the global setup. And if you look at how Russia, Ukraine have proceeded, probably because it is the structure of the UN, that the way the Security Council is structured, that is making it difficult for the world to resolve this dispute because it involves one of the permanent members. So when it is like that, the rest of us suffer. So I think that the African leaders are justified to the extent that they want a fairer world. But then again, we must also do more for ourselves than only calling on other powers to help us solve our own problem. Majority of the problem lie with us, not the other powers.
Stay with me, please. I want to bring in Mr. JB now with the Small Arms Commission on this subject also, because part of the problem is our own inability to deal with the circulation of these arms and ammunition as the UN is now picking on. He joins us now. Hopefully he can hear me. Hello, Mr. Santi, can you hear me?
Yeah, Evans, I can hear, even though it's a bit faint, but I'm listening. Please.
Fantastic. I wanted to know what the latest numbers are when it comes to the circulation of of small arms and ammunition generally in the country.
Okay, thank you very much, Evans. It is always quite difficult to give a number as to the number of illicit weapons circulating in the country. But at least I can take you back to as far back as 2014 when the Commission conducted a baseline survey to determine the number of weapons in the country. And it came out that we had about 2.3 weapons in the country as at that time. Out of the 2.3, 1.2 were weapons that have been registered by the police and they have them in their records.
When you say 1.2, 1.2 million?
Were weapons that could not be accounted for. And these are usually based on...
Mr. Sante, you say 1.2. Yes. Is it million or...
1.1 million, yes.
1.1 million.
Okay. According to that was the estimated figure that was given to be the number of illicit weapons in the system as at that time. Now that is 9 years later. It could be more. It could also be less. It is difficult to know because, normally these weapons are not declared to anybody, so you wouldn't know. But of course, that is where the concern is. When we hear of the use of illicit weapons, in the country, in conflict situations, in crime situations, it's something that is really worrying. And for us, what we say is that it is not necessarily about the number, but these weapons getting into wrong hands and being used in all kinds of atrocities that affect our security, and that can also ultimately affect our development.
And it is with these weapons that, of course, the SAP region in particular has now become very known for conflicts. A lot of coups d'etats. We have a lot of extremists, especially in the Sahel, making it pretty difficult for governments there to get a grip and have a country that has a semblance of law and order. I want to bring in Professor Kwesi into the conversation right now on the subject. And Prof, you listen to the African leaders and they complain that the West has done pretty little to help fix the conflict challenges that we are currently experiencing, particularly in the sub-region. Our president has been saying that. But if you listen to how negligent we've been ourselves in dealing with our own problems when it comes to the conflict, is it fair to call out the West on this matter?
No, far from it. If we take violent extremism and terrorism, the statistics do not belly the concern, certainly not for every country. The UN resolution 1373 established the Counterterrorism Executive Directorate that expected member states to inform the UN about levels of their preparation. Several years ago, I was head of counterterrorism at the African Union. Member states simply did not have the capacity to tell the UN about what their needs were, because we have placed
square pegs in round holes. And that is what is coming back to bite us 20 years later. So I think we need a self-reflective process and then to say these are the gaps that we need to plug. But I can tell you, it is the governance deficits in quite a number of our countries that are leading to these challenges. And whether you went to pump billions of dollars, it will just be a bottomless hole. I think this old rhetoric of blaming someone else for your problems must stop. Okay? The challenges that we face have been brought onto us by our own misdeeds. And therefore, I think it's quite disingenuous to be blaming others.
I mean, our president makes the comparison that there is a full-blown war in the heart of Europe, and you see the global mobilization by the West to deal with a particular problem. And then you do a comparison what we're witnessing, especially in the SAP region, and there isn't as much attention, there isn't as much devotion of resources to it. And then you complicate that by what Bola Tinubu says tonight, alleging that the West is actually now pumping billions into fueling the conflicts in West Africa. If that is anything to go by, at least they know what they're talking about, that the West is very complicit in what is happening.
Well, but nobody can be complicit in your conflict if you don't allow the people to become complicit. I mean, who buys the weapons? Who brings them here? I mean, we know that Victor Bout, during the 1980s, early 1990s, was part of this criminal network that used end-user certificates provided by African governments that allowed Victor Bout to sell weapons to Liberia, Guinea, Democratic Republic of Congo, and almost every conflict system on this continent. Yes, the West will see our conflicts as business as usual. Okay? We would need to say, where does our national interest lie? And where do our strategic security interests lie? And how do we cohere these two so that we can serve our people? Okay? More often than not, we are complicit in bringing in mercenaries, in bringing in the weapons, in bringing in people who will destabilize our societies. So whilst, yes, we can point fingers, I think when we point one finger, four of them certainly point at us. And we need a more critical, self-reflective view of how to deal with these our problems.
Mr. Asante, on the subject of the arms, though, which is a problem still circulating, you talked about the latest numbers. As we speak, we don't know what the actual numbers are. But are we any close to dealing with the sources of this particular problem? How porous it's been to just flood our country and other countries in the West Africa with these arms and ammunition that then becomes the fuel to fuel conflict.
Hello,
Mr. Asante. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm straining to hear you.
Yeah,
I'm
just trying to interrogate the policies and the reason why we set up the Small Arms Commission to deal with this in terms of resolving the problem. And the Professor Ini has said adequately a short while ago that part of the problem is that we are creating these ourselves. If we're fixing the floodgates that allow the arms to come in, we will not be as alarmed by the conflict. Where are we in resolving this challenge with this illicit arms and weapons flooding our country?
Okay, thank you very much. I think you mentioned the porous nature of our borders, which is one of the challenges that we are dealing with. The security agencies are also dealing with. There is that intelligence and belief that we have some of these weapons coming through the porous borders, which means that we will need the necessary equipment, surveillance equipment. We need to retool our security agencies to be able to patrol the borders and patrol the borders effectively. And so that is one of the challenges that we have to deal with. But as a commission, we are also focusing on the borders as we speak. And so we are in some of the borders, we have recruited trained officers that we are sending there. And we are also getting the necessary equipment that will help us to be able to detect some of these weapons Sometimes some of them are even able to smuggle them along the approved routes because they hide some of these weapons in truck loads of all kinds of things, and it's difficult when you don't have the requisite equipment that will be able to detect these weapons, and that is something that we are seriously working on it. Even yesterday we had discussions with the ministry. They are trying to help us to procure some of these detective equipment that will help us to be able to detect some of these equipment. So that is the situation when it comes to the borders, and we should be able to get enough surveillance equipment, enough security personnel with the necessary equipment to be able to deal with some of these situations.
Thank you very much. That's J.B. Asante. He's the Deputy Director of Policy Planning and Monitoring Evaluation at the Small Arms Commission. LA Head Dr. Ishmael Holovo is a lecturer at the University of Education, Winneba, and of course an analyst on international relations. And Professor Kwesi Ening is the Director of Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Let's hear from you, 055-11-11997. George Yafe is here with the very latest from the world of business. Hello, George.
Hi, Evans. And coming up in business, Ghana's economic growth for second quarter slows to 3.2% due to contraction in some sectors. And economist Dr. Patrick Osimhen expects government to pass the IMF program review for the second tranche of disbursement to come in. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, Centers, Tanks, and Pepsodent, Charcoal and Herbal.
Imagine strutting into the most anticipated wedding of the year. Only to see 7 other girls wearing your exact same outfit.
You are special and one of a kind, and that's why whether it's voice, data, or SMS, you get to enjoy personalized offers tailored to your specific needs with MTN Just For You. Dial *141# or select your options on the My MTN app to redeem your unique Just For You package on Ghana's best mobile network. MTN.
Hooray! The Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited's Back to School promotion is here with us once again. From the 4th of September to the 31st of October 2023, Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited is giving a generous 10% to 15% discount on all school items like textbooks, pens, pencils, erasers, exercise books, and so much more across all our branches in Accra, Tema, Kumasi, Takoradi, Winneba, and Cape Coast. Parents, teachers, and students, please hurry while stock lasts. For more information, call us on 0302-764-101 or 0302-764-209 or email info@kingdomgh.com. You can also visit our website www.kingdomgh.com. Kingdom Books, where quality and affordability are both assured. Terms and conditions apply.
No matter your water needs, Sintex has it all. Sintex Tank was first to introduce double layer tank, and now you can have as many layers as you want. Sintex Tank was first to introduce white inner layer tanks in Ghana, and now introduces the customer specs order, which will let you order any color and size you want. Sintex Tanks gives you the biggest warranty of 7 years, which no other tank gives you. So whatever your water consumption, size of project, or demand, choose Sintex Tank. Sintex Tank, stress-free. Sintex Tank, reliable. Sintex Tank, maximum guarantee. Call 0244-335-168, Kumasi 0505-555-666, or visit sintexgh.com. Sintex Tank, a year strong, a year tough.
Ghana, are you ready? Mark your calendar as the Makers House Chapel International presents
The Experience Conference 2023. From the 1st to the 8th of October, it's the gathering of the spiritual luminaries of the land. Get ready to experience Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams, Reverend Dr. Mensah Otabil, Archbishop Charles Ajinasari, Reverend Dr. Ampia Kofi, Reverend Dr. Steve Mensah, Reverend Dr. Ebenezer Markwe, Bishop Frank Ofosu Apia, and your host, Dr. Michael Bwedi Nyamiche. Come and experience Jesus, the miracle worker. Venue is the Destiny Arena of the Makers House Chapel International, Atomic, adjacent School of Nuclear and Allied Sciences. Time is 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. on weekdays, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Saturday, and 8 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. on Sundays. It's going to be a life-changing encounter. The Experience Conference 2023. I can't wait.
I'm afraid. Media Sambisanda mo. Eti emrati no. Mu ho pane to me fi na mo bodom pe mo mane yakono. Eye kwabna. No mu ho nso na tumi just male me ma yene nyina de. Eye kojo. Enu kro. Kobre to me wi na bodom pe mo sense o yisu president eba. Aye den aban ne do braye. Bu si echi na mo ho ban na sem mana ho de ne. Sa. Ani na kojo nso yisu president chako. Na eno ne de e ma wo se wo ye krejen fita. Na watimi asiri my mother feel you. Hey, Kojo, sir. Yeah. Pepsodent Heba and a Pepsodent Charcoal. I've had you're gonna natural.
FDIJ Trading Katuyatu.
You're welcome back to Business on Newsnight. The country's economic growth in the second quarter of this year slowed. Now, this is despite the 3.2% growth posted from April to June this year. But what are the drivers of this action? James Ishen has more.
6 sub-sectors under industry contributed to this reduction in growth for the second quarter of this year. One can talk about construction, which went down by more than 11%, followed by repair of motor vehicles and motorcycles, electricity, forestry and manufacturing. Despite this challenge, the service sector continued with its dominance as it posted more than 10% expansion for the second quarter of this year. Agric, on the other hand, expanded by 1.3% compared to the more than 2% posted in the first quarter of 2023. The sector's growth was fueled by crops and cocoa. Industry, on the other hand, went down by just under 1%.
And James Ishen with that report. Meanwhile, economist Professor Peter Kote is still pushing for some targeted investments in some of the sectors to fast-track the recovery.
Don't have to celebrate this now. We have to wait and see what the next couple of months also bring. Receive this. We also have to continue to invest more in agriculture and industry. It clearly shows that some sectors are not doing too well. Construction is not doing too well. Manufacturing is also not doing too well. Negative growth in construction, about 11.7% in the second quarter of the year. Manufacturing minus 0.5%. These are not positive signals. Even with finance, usually we get more growth from the services sector driven by finance as well as ICT. ICT continues to dominate with 26.4% growth, but finance grew marginally by 0.4%. So it tells you our financial institutions are still not out of the wood and we have to tread cautiously.
And that is economist Professor Peter Kote. Now, economist Dr. Patrick Assumin is projecting that government will pass the first IMF program review. It starts from next week. His comment is coming ahead of the much talked about IMF program review. It's supposed to start on Monday, September 25. But Dr. Assumin wants government to come clean on data that it will present to the fund.
Based on what we've seen so far, I would expect that the review will be positive, and the government would have been assessed to have met the key criteria. So one area where maybe the government could have struggled would be the expenditure cut. I think this government has shown very little appetite for cutting government expenditures. But you see that what we put in the budget was extremely high. So even a little bit of a cut should be able to help. So honesty and being transparent with the information. I mean, it doesn't serve us if we try to hide any relevant information. I think we should put all the data on the table and then be honest where we are facing difficulties so that we address them and not try to hide anything.
And that is economist Dr. Patrick Sumi. Now, passing this test will see the IMF board approve for disbursement some $600 million that should come in before the end of November this year. It could also trigger other donor partners to come in with some financial support for the country, including the World Bank. The Association of Ghana Industries has called on the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission to ensure that industries pay fair tariffs. They argue that this has become imperative for industries to be competitive. The chief executive of the association, Chuma Kwabwa, disclosed this when he spoke at the final day of the 2023 Association of Ghana Industries Industrial Summit and Exhibition.
Eventually, we should have competitive pricing of energy for industry. We've managed to establish a trade house now in Kenya, and we are working towards getting Ghanaian goods there. But others are also consistently and constantly coming to our territory and looking for opportunities. But again, the underlying factor is about competitiveness. If you are not competitive, you sit in your own market, people will bring goods here, their goods will be much cheaper, and they will take away your market. And as I said, a major factor for determining the cost of production is energy. So we must get energy cost to the barest possible minimum. In Ghana, we've seen some improvement, honestly. I must commend, I know PRC is not here, but I'll commend them, that if you look at the last tariff in September last year, eventually we are appreciating that industry should not subsidize residential users of energy.
Chuma Kwabwa is the chief executive of the Association of Ghana Industries. Now, commercial banks are lowering their expectations for their profits when it comes to the full year numbers. Now, banks ended the first half of this year posting some strong earnings following the record loss for last year. But Chief Executive of the Association of Ghana Industries, John Ewa, tells Joy Business they are being measured on their outlook.
Numbers are numbers. You don't have to run ahead of yourself. In our view, we have a strong industry that is ready to support economic activities. Of course, we have to also mimic the sentiments, economic sentiments of the country. And therefore, if things are not working very well economically in other sectors, you are definitely going to see its reflection within the banking system. And that is why we are very cautious and very careful in blowing the horn, out of proportion. Yes, the banks are recovering, and so much that we can do, a lot more we can do. But we believe that the market rates must move in a direction that enables us to do even more.
John Ewa, Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Banks. So the stock market, if you hold EcoBank shares, it was up by 12 pesos and it's now worth 4 Ghana cedis, 10 pesos. However, Farm Milk was down by 2 pesos to close at 3 Ghana cedis, 3 pesos. And that's all for Business on Newsnight. Back to you, Evans.
And thank you very much, George. And there is a lot of focus tonight from our listeners on the story about the Fix the Country movement demonstrations and protests tomorrow, that the police say they have now filed a process in court and have successfully served that application on the movement seeking to prohibit that particular protest. Nana is on the Spinkters Road, says Evans, the current president and his friends not occupy the Jubilee House whilst Mahama was there. Prince in Tema says the police must stop trying to suppress the rights of the people by using the courts. Keep it up, and one of these days it will explode in our faces. Give people the space to vent out. Francis in Accra says, please ask Miracle if they were them, what will they say, or what would the reactions be? This one says, I wonder if the intelligence unit of the police has been put to use. Some of these unfortunate incidents should not be happening in the 21st century. And a final one from our phones in Nandom says the government of the day doesn't pay attention to demonstrations. The demonstration in recent times are not getting any results. I think it will be unwise for citizens to continue doing something that doesn't bring any results. Well, tomorrow the protesters say they will go ahead with the protest. You're still live here on Newsnight. It's on Joy 99.7 FM. Now, Alan Chemanting may have pulled out of the MPP flag bearership race with complaints that the process had been skewed to favor one particular candidate. Now, there are reports Mr. Tremanting is considering his political options and may run either as an independent candidate or on a ticket of another political party because of the deep grievance he has with the way the NPP conducted the Superdelegates Conference. Well, tonight, the party's election committee has been dismissing the allegations that the primary process has been skewed. Now, listen to the vice chairman of the NPP Elections Committee, Abankwah Yeboah, speaking to journalists after a meeting with the party's presidential aspirants today.
To the best of my knowledge, I do not think the process was not fair. The process on 26th August was very fair, and I believe for one or two incidents that took place, I think even the aspirants, when they came here, some of them came to congratulate us for the work we did. So to the best of my knowledge, I think the processes, the guidelines, everything that we put in place was as fair as practical. The one or two incidents that took place have been addressed, but on the whole, I believe it has been a very good election on 26th. And we believe on the 4th November, the party will prove everybody wrong, and that the members of this nation, the party, will make sure that that election will be an exemplary one for all other political parties to emulate. We will not speak for any candidates. For me, ours is to make sure that we give an even playing field. If you have any concerns, the best procedure is to lodge a complaint to the committee, which most candidates did. We have invited all the persons involved all over the country. We've done all that we can. We've done our investigation and we've given a report. So our report is before the party for the necessary steps to be taken.
Well, Samuel Mbura was there for us and joins us in the studio right now. Samuel, they met the representatives of the various aspirants today. Why?
The reason for the meeting was for them to draw the guidelines and the modalities for the November 4 Congress. It was only Adainimo who came there himself to participate in the meeting briefly. However, the camp of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia was represented by Fred Owari. Dr. Friakoto also sent a representative, same as Kennedy Ejapon.
Did we get any sense of what they discussed? And I'm getting the sense that this will be about laying out the guidelines and modalities for the final primary on November 4. Is it any different from what we become accustomed to and what they deployed for the superdelegate elections?
The modalities and guidelines used for the superdelegate elections stand, such that the committee has entrusted the entire electoral process into the hands of the Electoral Commission. The Ghana Police Service will take care of the oversight security activities. There will be no special accreditation for the media and no congregation for the aspirants on the day of the elections. We know that this is going to be decentralized, but they will have a voting center in the party or at the party's headquarters on the D-Day.
Okay, and would this be in constituency at the constituency level, all 275 constituencies?
Yes, so the elections will be conducted at the regional level, the same centers that they used for the Superdelegates Congress. That's how they are going to conduct the election and then later declare at the EC's office.
You've been speaking to some of the representatives who were there. You talked to Fred Owari, for example, who represented Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. What is his take on the electoral process so far?
He thinks that the election process from the Superdelegates Congress has been free and fair. They are hoping that getting into a November 4 election, that one will also be same. However, he has indicated that despite the fact that the delegates have bought into their messages, they are still touching base with them to ensure that whatever they have for the party, if Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is giving the nod to lead the party, would materialize.
We didn't go with any preconceived positions. There are guidelines that we've been looking at since we started the process. We use them for the special delegates on the 26th of August. And then we brought in some refinement based on some of the concerns which were raised by other contestants to make sure that there is peace within the party. And that's what we agreed on. There were no contentious issues whatsoever. We're finished. We've signed. Each candidate's representative has put his signature to it, and the process has completed. And we hope to have a very peaceful elections on the November 4th. We've always worked hard to win the elections. We're not winning it because we're not doing any work. If you follow the campaign trail, you see there is one candidate who's been to every constituency without having cluster meetings. It's a lot of hard work. We start early in the mornings, sometimes as early as 6 we're on the road, as late as 1 a.m. We're now retiring to go to bed. And so it's been a very difficult process. We continue to do that and making sure that we touch base with every of the 200,000 plus delegates and take our message to them.
Well, one particular aspirant was there himself at Dynamo. He really believes he can make a difference in the race.
Yes, he says his performance in the Super Delegates Congress gives him that hope that he can make a difference, and he is on.
Doesn't he accept that it's a two-horse race?
He doesn't agree. He says that that's what the polls are putting before the media, and he is urging the media to stop the discussion on only two aspirants. He's hinting of springing a surprise in the November elections.
Why do you go to a race without getting to the finishing line? We have to get to the finishing line.
But do you have the finances to continue?
What do you mean by finances?
You have over 200,000 delegates to reach out.
Well, it's a matter of reaching out to as many delegates that you can.
How many have you reached out to?
Let me tell you, the threshold for winning this election is 50% plus one. So if you have 200,000 delegates, then you need 100,000 plus additional one vote, and you win. How you will get your votes, the strategies are different, and this is what I keep on saying, that strategies are different. And so if I'm reaching out to people in the rural areas, in urban areas, who knows? At the end, it's for me how I canvass for my votes, and the votes should be delivered.
Opinion polls does not...
Opinion polls differ. Opinion polls, we have had so many opinion polls that they didn't work in this country. We've had people who said they are posters, they come out with their polls and they don't work. Those polls do not reflect on the day of election. So why not? I'm in the race to win. Who goes to the race not to win? You have to win. You have to work hard and secure victory. I mean, let me give you a typical example. In a 100-meter race where Usain Bolt is one of the sprinters and other sprinters, would they abandon the race that because Usain Bolt is in the race, they are abandoning the race? They will go. You never know what will happen to Usain Bolt by the time he gets to the 50-meter mark. He may pull out and somebody will have the opportunity to win. And that is how the race is.
Francis Dynamo is seeking to lead the MPP into the 2024 elections. What do you make of his chances? 055-1111-997. Now, tonight, the minority in Parliament, they are sounding the alarm bells on the government's plans to collateralize Ghana's stake in the 10 oil fields to secure a loan of $431 million. Now, just before Parliament went on recess, GMPC sought approval of the Mines and Energy Committee to borrow more than $600 million, but the committee asked the company to bring the terms and conditions of the loan to the House for consideration and a decision. Now, the minority are now alleging that President Akufo-Addo has asked GMPC to proceed and borrow more than $400 million without the approval of Parliament. Now, speaking at a news conference today, minority spokesperson on Mines and Energy argued that the terms of the loan agreement are so bad and skewed against Ghana.
If we allow this government to plunder our oil resources, it will affect future generations. As if this is not enough, another document that was intercepted at the board level of the GMPC has 5 main components: the deed of indebtedness, the joint crude oil supply and purchase agreement, the prepayment facility agreement, the guarantee facility agreement, and the crude oil supply and purchase agreement. The key in this has to do with the fact that GMPC is raising this facility from Letasco and Look Oil, and in return, they are giving out our oil to this company for the next 5.5 years. Indeed, all of the oil in the 10 fields has been encumbered, including royalties, including surface rentals, and our carried and participating interest. All of it for the next 5.5 years would be escrowed to this company. More importantly, every year, a minimum of 3.8 million barrels of our crude oil will be given to Letasco for this loan that is being raised. No one even knows what exactly they want to use the money for, apart from some repayment of debt. In addition to that, they are charging an interest of SOFR plus margin. And when you look at the document, and I refer you to page 5 of the document, apart from the SOFR, the margin goes up to about 9.5% in respect of tranche B. So you pay the SOFR rate and add 9.5% on that amount. This is mind-boggling. You cannot plunder our oil resources in the way and manner in which the Akufo-Addo government is going about.
Let's bring in Kojo Poku, who is Executive Director of the Energy Policy and Research. Of course, also recently run in an attempt to lead the MPP into the 2024 elections as a presidential hopeful. Mr. Poku joins us on the line now. Kojo, thanks for your time here on Newsnight. So you've listened to the minority side on this matter. Do they have a case?
I don't know what my brother Jinapo is doing a press conference now about. I would have expected him to do the press conference when they now approve the work program of GMPC, because exactly what he's talking about. He approved it at the committee level and took it to the plenary and have it approved in August by the plenary. He moved the motion, and actually, if he didn't move the motion, I think he seconded the motion for that motion to pass on his own committee report. So if you go to a committee session and approve a work program for GMPC, where GMPC came in and told you that they are going to borrow a certain amount of money, and you don't interrogate it at the committee level, and when the budget that you have approved, they seek to now put it in action, then you hold a press conference about it. That is where my challenge is. We can all have a conversation when it comes to whether government should collateralize our oil receipts. I have a challenge with borrowing ahead of oil.
Well, why do you have a challenge with that?
Say it again?
Why do you have a challenge with that?
Because we've been doing that since 2010 and it hasn't helped us. I have always said that we should wait to receive the money and spend it. That means the interest and all those things don't eat into the oil benefits that we will get as a nation. But as a parliamentary committee member, you approved the work program. The GMPC came to tell you that they are going to, in 2023, they are going to borrow X amount. You didn't interrogate it. You didn't have any problem with it. You approved the work program. GMPC is going ahead to do what they told you that they are going to do, and they are holding a press conference. I would have thought that then, when GMPC came to tell him at the committee level, then he would have held a press conference for all of us to support him to basically tell GMPC that, look, find ways to increase your production and stop collateralizing our oil receipts. But you approved that budget.
Thankfully, he joins us on the line, John Junapo. He's a ranking on the Mines and Energy Committee. Mr. Junapo, did you, in your capacity as the leader of your group on the committee, approve this work program?
I'm surprised that... Who was the one talking?
Kojo Poku.
Has he looked at the parliamentary resolution?
Have I looked at what?
Have you read the parliamentary resolution on the work program?
Yeah, no, I have seen the work program that you approved, and I've seen the order of which you approved. So are you saying that you approve it minus the work program?
So you should learn to get these facts before you run on this. Let me read what is in the work program.
All of us. Did you approve the work program minus the borrowing of them by GMPC?
No, we did not.
Exactly. So what is the problem?
But you said we approved it, and why are we holding a press conference? You've drawn all kinds of conclusions. I thought you'd have contacted it to get the details before you make such conclusive statements.
Did this come before you for consideration and approval?
Yes. The work program was submitted to Parliament. They were in two tranches. The normal work program, which has a budget of 520 million or so, I had to pack, which we considered. In the work program, aside the normal budget, GMPC informed us that they wanted permission to borrow additional 620 million. That is different. The work program has our shares in our oil fields in terms of what goes into the ABFA, what goes into the stabilization fund, what goes into the heritage fund, and the equity part that goes to GMPC. That was not an issue. The main issue is that GMPC wants to borrow 620 million.
And at that level, when it came, what was your position?
And this is what Parliament approved. Let me read what Parliament approved to you. I'm reading it verbatim. It's titled Letasco Loan Facility Refinancing. 10.3. Let me read what that says. The committee recommends to GMPC to lay the terms and conditions of the intended loan for the consideration of the House in accordance with Article 181 of the Constitution.
Was that done?
Pardon?
Was that done?
That is where we're having the problem.
I mean, so it hasn't been done? Has it been late?
It hasn't been done.
But if it hasn't been done, then it hasn't been effected. I mean, Parliament, can they go ahead without...
And yet, GMPC has taken this agreement to their board for approval to sign. I have seen the loan agreement. In the loan agreement, there's nowhere, not even a single line, that contemplates that we should go to Parliament for approval. I've been a minister at that ministry before. When two parties are constructing an agreement and they intend that they would seek parliamentary approval, it will be stated explicitly there. It's not in the agreement. That is one. Two, I have another document which I'll share with you. A board memo from the chief executive seeking for approval from the board to sign, and in all the conditions precedent for the effective implementation or to bring this agreement into effect. Parliament is never mentioned. I have another minute of 14th of September in which the President chairs a meeting attended by the Chief of Staff, Secretary to President, Deputy Minister of Energy, Letasco officials, the Minister of Finance, and the GMPC Chief Executive, where the President proposed to give them express approval that they should proceed without parliamentary approval.
Mr. Jinapo, stay with me. I just have a few seconds to wrap up. Mr. Poku, he's clarified this. Does that address the concerns you raised?
Mr. Jinapo from the NDC is making this statement. They are the very people who set the precedent that GMPC does not need parliamentary approval for any borrowing. It was GMPC's time when that ruling came from the court. So I'm surprised he's making that allegation. That somebody from GMPC is seeking to approve something without parliamentary. When indeed it was the NDC that gave that ruling, got that ruling from the court. When it was that time, they enjoyed it where GMPC doesn't need parliamentary approval. Now that is being done, he has a problem with it.
Mr. Poku, thank you very much. Mr. Jinapo, unfortunately, we ran out of time, and I know you love football, and we have to cross over now to the Champions League, Mr. Jinapo. Thank you very much for joining us on this matter. I guess the lads are physically evicting me from here. Because a certain football team that I used to love, Manchester United, is about to play against Bayern Munich. It's going to be a slaughter. Mr. Cranting is here. Hello, Mr. Cranting. How are you?
Conveniently, as you used to love.
Yeah, I used to.
Yeah, I've also been a Bayern Munich fan since the 90s.
Oh, you're still?
Yeah.
Oh, please, come on. Spill the beans.
He's a big United fan.
Oh, goodness. So, yeah, you join the camp?
Yeah, but I'll follow you soon.
Okay.